Welcome to today's interview. My guests today are Vasyl Myroshnychenko, the Ukrainian ambassador to Australia and New Zealand, and Dr. Alan Dobrovolsky, Director of International Operations for ADE Consulting Group. Vasyl, I'd like to begin with you if that's okay. You presented at EcoForum conference almost a year ago, highlighting various contamination challenges in Ukraine due to the ongoing conflict. Could you update our members on the situation since your EcoForum presentation?
Oh, thank you. I'm very happy to be with you today and share with you some of the recent updates and some of the challenges that Ukraine is facing. This Russian aggression in Ukraine has now been ongoing for 2.5 years. And apart from bringing enormous destruction to our infrastructure, to the people, and to the miseries that we are facing, it does have a major impact on our environment. And so the problems are diverse, and there are many of those. Firstly, we are seeing chemical contamination, right? Chemical contamination to our air, to our soil, to our water, right? And that's been widespread. Affected areas are many affected areas throughout the country. Another big issue, which is of course the protected areas in Ukraine, environmental protected areas. 30% of them have been affected, right, due to landscape change, due to wildfires, due to shelling and deforestation. I mean, any vegetation has been suffering. A lot of the natural reserve parks have been under the Russian occupation. Some of the natural reserve parks have become battlefields. And that really has endangered many species of animals as well as flora out there in those natural reserve parks. Most importantly, we are seeing, the huge problem with mines, that with landmines of different kinds, and unexploded ordnance. Now, the estimate for the territory which has been affected is now 30% of the territory of Ukraine is mined, right? We recently had our annual ambassadors meeting in Kiev, and our prime minister was updating us on this demining challenge. And he gave a very striking statistic where he said that if we take the equipment and the people who are trained in demining, I mean, whatever numbers we have at the moment, we will need 750 years to clear Ukraine of the landmines. I mean, this is just shocking when you fully realize the scope of that. Of course, we hope it will be much faster. I mean, we are working with other international donors, also working with companies who are producing land demining equipment on how we can localize it. And most importantly, we need to train more people who are involved in demining, for instance, right? Now, nuclear threats and also the risk of nuclear contamination. Russians are now keeping the largest nuclear power plant in Europe as a hostage. It's in Zaporizhia. And this this nuclear plant several times was actually disconnected from the grid. And that really has been a very dangerous situation. They had to kick in some of the emergency power supply. And for the safety of the facility, constant power supply is crucial to make sure nothing happens there. So there were already instances of that, kind of operating under extreme conditions. And therefore, it's been kind of used pretty much as a blackmailing Ukraine by using and keeping the big nuclear power facility as a hostage. Also, at the initial stages of the war, in 2022, Russians have occupied Chernobyl power station, and they have deliberately put some forests into fire. And there was, kind of spread of some of the contamination from the activity in that area, which is, been closed down for almost 40 years now. But the military, which gone through the Chernobyl, has really kind of disrupted a lot of that. I mean, luckily they have left that area as of April 2022. Now, one of the biggest, as we call it, Ecocide. And by the way, Ukraine is currently pursuing Ecocide basically as a war crime. And there are already many cases that we will be investigating and will be prosecuting further to keep Russia accountable for the environmental damage that has been done. And one of those major war crimes was, of course, the deliberate destruction of Kakhovka hydropower station in June of 2023. I mean, the level of and the implications of that have been huge. Over 80 settlements have been flooded. We've also, that water has affected and hit landfills. That water also has hit fertilizer facilities and caused massive contamination to water, soil, and of course, I'll ask. I hope Alan will be able to kind of further elaborate on the impacts of this, you know, from remediation standpoint and kind of as a scientist. But it's been but the Kakhovka Dam destruction has really had a major impact. Well, currently, if you look at all the costs, and recently there was a cost, you know, somebody tried to estimate what the cost of environmental damage only. It was estimated to be at about 56 billion US dollars. I mean, in terms of what we are facing at the moment, and the war is still ongoing, right? It's still out there. It's still, you know, more destruction will be out there. You know, the housing that's been destroyed. There are lots of how to deal with all of that rubble. I mean, a lot of that rubble may also include some asbestos and other contaminants, which are very dangerous, right? And how can we you know, deal with that? I mean, at this scale. Apart from that, I mean, it's there are also some indirect impacts of this war. I mean, one of them is, of course, related to the disruption on the international cooperation on climate change, and basically you know, there is a number that Ukraine has been. As a result, greenhouse emissions related to aggression have reached 150 million tons of CO2, right? And about 800,000 hectares of Ukrainian forests have been engulfed in the war, and nearly 3 million hectares have been entrenched and burnt. And that all had an impact on the climate change. Mostly, also, it has really disrupted the transition, especially in Europe, to gas, basically, because Europe relied on the Russian gas. And since the war started, I mean, this relationship has been severed as Europe is now readjusting and creating other supply chains to get gas. So still, many of them were forced to use coal again, which is of course undermining all the work that has been previously achieved on the climate change. You know, this is just kind of a general overview of what we are facing and how it is, you know, impacting the environment, how it is impacting the health of the people. The war is still ongoing. We are seeing some of the major battlefields. We are talking about the largest war since the Second World War. I mean, in terms of its scale, because the number of troops which been deployed, the kind of weapons which been used, and as you know, all weapons are toxic in themselves because they include those chemicals, right? Once exploded, all those chemicals are emitted into atmosphere, they emitted into soil, and they will contaminate, right? So we will need a lot of help to deal with that. So, you know, this is just kind of an overview on where we are at the moment.
Alan, building on from Vasyl's insights, could you detail the specific types of contamination that are currently most pressing in Ukraine? Additionally, what do you anticipate as both the immediate and longer term impacts of these contamination issues on the environment and public health?
Large areas that have been affected by military operations in Ukraine are expected to be contaminated by a range of environmental pollutants. The specific contaminants present will vary depending on factors such as the type of weaponry used, the duration and intensity of the military operations in a particular area. There are a few types of contaminants that we expect will be present at and adjacent to the areas where military operations took place. The first and most deadly type is unexploded ordnance. These are unexploded bombs, shells, landmines, and other munitions that contain explosives that may detonate if disturbed. Also, heavy metals such as lead, cadmium, mercury, and arsenic that have been released from destroyed infrastructure, military equipment, and ammunition. These metals can persist in soil, water and sediments, posing long-term risks to human health and ecosystems. Then hydrocarbons and petroleum products residues, they are resulting from the fuel spills, leaks from storage tanks and destroyed infrastructure, releasing hydrocarbons into the environment, leading to soil, surface water and groundwater contamination. Another type of contaminants are radioactive materials. As weaponry containing depleted uranium reportedly have been used, its fragments might be present in the environment due to the impact of this munition with the targets. Then asbestos, it is present in destroyed older buildings and structures, releasing hazardous fibers into the environment. Also PFAS or polyfluoroalkyl substances that are used as binders in polymer bonded explosives and in various components of munitions. Also pesticides and herbicides will be present in the environment as the result of destruction of stored agricultural chemicals, leading to contamination of soil and water. We also expect that biological contaminants will be present due to the destruction of sanitation systems and healthcare facilities, leading to the spread of infectious diseases. The immediate impact of these contaminants has potential to create severe environmental and public health challenges. The direct exposure to the unexploded ordnance poses significant danger to civilians and military personnel as they may detonate if disturbed. Exposure to heavy metals can lead to acute poisoning, particularly for children. Hydrocarbon contamination can lead to fire hazards, skin burns, and acute respiratory problems. Asbestos fibers, if they inhaled during the destruction of buildings, can lead to immediate respiratory issues such as lung inflammation. Exposure to PFAS can cause liver damage, thyroid disruption, and immune system suppression. The release of biological contaminants leads to the rapid spread of infectious disease, increasing the risk of outbreaks. Regarding the long-term impact, it will occur due to persistent soil and water contamination. For example, metals degrade very slowly over time and will remain in soil for decades, leading to long-term exposure risks through the food chain. This could result in chronic diseases and other illnesses as cancer, neurological disorders, and developmental issues in children. Long-term contamination of soil and groundwater from petroleum hydrocarbons can hinder agricultural and degrade water quality, affecting both humans and animal populations. Then PFAS, these forever chemicals are highly persistent in the environment and accumulate in living organisms, potentially affecting wildlife and humans through food and water consumption. PFAS exposure is linked to cancers and immune dysfunction. The long-term exposure to asbestos will cause mesothelioma and lung cancer. Fragments from depleted uranium munitions can remain in the environment where they slowly release radiation into the soil and water. Over the long term, this can lead to cancers, reproductive health issues, and genetic mutations in both humans and wildlife. Long-term exposure to pesticides and herbicides can lead to various health issues, including cancer, neurological, and respiratory problems. So all or most of these contaminants will need to be addressed as part of environmental assessments and also in compliance with EU environmental legislation during the site development.
So, Vasyl, in your view, what role can our industry play in helping Ukraine address these contamination challenges? What resources do you think could assist from the global contamination industry to effectively support the future recovery efforts that are going to need to be put in place?
Yeah, we definitely welcome the involvement of the industry, and I'm sure many companies are already involved, international companies are already involved and working with the Ukrainian government. I don't have all the details as it is, as you know, as an ambassador of Ukraine in Australia and New Zealand. I have lots of things to cover, and I'm not an expert in the field. However, I would welcome and would be happy to put in touch those companies who are willing to come and support Ukraine in any possible way. Also, you know, I'm hoping that Australian government and New Zealand government will be able to step up, because the way, I mean, the way environment is treated here and the way you know how to deal with many of those issues, and I think this will require lots of collaboration that will have to be put in place, and also financial support, to be frank, because the challenges are huge and we cannot deal with them on our own. And we, of course, are very grateful for the support that's been provided so far, but we hope that we can specifically also work on these issues, on environmental issues. And I would like to commend the work that Dr. Alan Dobrovolsky has already done in that respect, and the charity that he's created. And I will let him tell you more about what exactly his idea is and what he's been able to achieve so far. But he definitely needs the support of other industry players, and I strongly encourage you to go and support him in any possible way by making a donation or donating equipment, or in any possible way, because at the end of the day, we will need people, we will need equipment, we will need to do the trainings for those who will be involved in clearing those Ukrainian, you know, in water and soil and air, and a lot will be needed for sure.
You had started a tax-deductible charity focused on addressing contamination issues in Ukraine. So I wanted to ask you a question now around how charities like this are contributing to the awareness and remediation efforts in the region, and, you know, what additional support do you believe is needed from the global industry to accelerate these initiatives?
Not-for-profit organizations are playing an important role in raising awareness and addressing environmental devastation in Ukraine, especially in war-affected areas. However, most of these organizations focus mainly on providing help to local population to deal with immediate consequences of Russian aggression, like addressing food and water shortages or relocating people further from the front line. International Action Alliance Ltd, which I founded recently, has plans to assist Ukraine with conducting environmental investigations in areas such as those affected by the Kakhovka Dam disaster, as well as some affected areas along the front line. Also proposed a remediation action plan based on the results of the investigation, help with demining as part of the remediation plans, also quantify the costs of environmental damage. To accelerate environmental remediation efforts in Ukraine, additional support from the global community is crucial. There are many ways how global industry can contribute. For example, with funding and investment. The scale of environmental damage in Ukraine requires significant financial resources. Global companies can contribute by funding remediation projects or partnering with non-for-profit organizations like International Action Alliance to finance long-term solutions such as contaminant removal and land restoration. Another way of contributing to Ukraine's recovery is the technology transfer. Industries specializing in environmental technologies such as pollution mitigation, soil decontamination, and water purification can provide advanced equipment and technical expertise. Also very important is the supply chain support. Providing critical supplies such as environmental monitoring tools, remediation products at reduced cost if possible, and even donations would help Ukraine's environmental recovery operations. These contributions would ensure the long-term health of the environment in the war-affected areas of Ukraine.
Well, I mean, well done for taking on the initiative and really using expertise that you have and the access to the industry that you have as well to support Ukraine in this. It's really pleasing to hear that there is hope that there's your expertise and the expertise of the industry there to support the people of Ukraine in the future recovery. So my next question, Vasyl, is one about innovation, actually. So it's a little bit of a change in mode here. We saw that there's an Australian not-for-profit organisation called Mobile Crisis Construction that's actually converting building debris into bricks. Are you seeing further innovations in Ukraine that could be used for future recovery efforts as well?
Yeah, I was very pleased to meet those group of engineers who came up with that idea. And I was recently in Perth, and they demonstrated to me how it works. And then actually one of those machines is already arriving in Ukraine shortly, and will be deployed in one of the towns outside of Kiev. And we'll see how it works. But this is, of course, an Australian ingenuity, which is going to be applied in Ukraine. So we hope to see more of that. And of course, I'm very thankful to Dr. Alan Dobrovolsky's work that he's trying to achieve in Ukraine. We need the community to support him and support some of his efforts, but we definitely need more of a similar initiatives of what could be done. On the innovation side, I think because of the, there will be a lot of innovation as it will be as Ukraine will be dealing with a lot of issues. I'm not probably the best one to give some of the examples of what else could be done, but in my view, because it's probably it's been a while that the world had to deal with this kind of challenges, and because the way technology has developed, the way science has developed, and some of the issues that will be applied in Ukraine, I think there was also a unique scientific opportunity for many who will be helping Ukraine to come up with some new ideas of how to deal with some of the issues we're dealing at such a scale, right? As how it could be sped up, or there will be some new inventions coming out of it, right? Because look, I mean, the issue of Ukraine's rebuild and reconstruction, is kind of a task for the next probably 2 generations at least, and but dealing with environmental issues is something where we have to start. Because we cannot renew farming in the areas which have been affected by the shells, right? We cannot rebuild buildings while we haven't remediated properly whatever was left out of those buildings, right? So it's and therefore it's multitude of those issues, but also the collective effort which will be employed will generate a great deal of innovation as we go.
Vasyl and Alan, as we conclude, what message would you like to convey to our audience about the importance of addressing contamination in Ukraine? Dr. Dobrovolsky, would you like to kick off?
Thank you for that question. To your audience at the Australasian Land and Groundwater Association, I would stress that addressing contamination in Ukraine isn't only an issue of immediate concern for those affected by the conflict, but it is also a matter of global responsibility. The environmental damage inflicted on Ukraine's land, water and ecosystems carries risks that extend far beyond Ukraine's national borders. Contaminants in soil and water will pose severe health risks for generations to come. By addressing this contamination, we not only aid Ukraine recovery, but also create a safer, cleaner world for all. Your expertise in remediation and land rehabilitation will be crucial to these efforts. International collaboration can bring about impactful solutions to assess, mitigate, and ultimately restore the land to a healthy state. I would encourage each of you to consider how your unique experience and expertise could contribute to these efforts and help create a partnership that will bring real environmental and health benefits.
And Vasyl, what would be your closing remarks today?
Look, I would like to thank ALGA for this opportunity to do this video blog, and I think that's it's an opportunity for us to draw attention to the challenges Ukraine is facing, and I would like to thank you for that, and also encourage everyone to see what you can do. And what contribution could be done, either by raising awareness about the issues or doing something more practical, or encouraging the governments of Australia and New Zealand to actually do more to help Ukraine deal with some of those issues, or just coming over and visiting Ukraine and trying to see how you can help on the corporate level, on the individual level, how you can also support some of the Australian-driven initiatives out of here. This is something that I will be very grateful for.
Look, I'd like to say thank you to you both for your time today and for sharing this important update on the situation in Ukraine. I'd also like to say to anyone watching our video today that if you have listened to this and feel that you are able to contribute and to support the efforts in Ukraine, please do reach out to ALGA, and I'm sure we can put you in touch with Dr. Dobrovolsky, and he can put you through to the right place in regards to being a part of his charity. So thank you very much for both of your time today and for sharing such an important update with us. I'm sure our members will really value hearing directly from you both on what's going on.